If you're on the lookout for some gluten and dairy-free cookies, these are amazing. They're gluten and dairy-free oatmeal chocolate chip cookies. I'll show you some hints on how you can convert a recipe to make it suit your family. These are so good. Even family members who aren't gluten and dairy-free will beg for another. Baking gluten and dairy-free is not difficult once you learn a couple of easy swaps. I oftentimes go to the King Arthur website for recipes, and that's where I found this one, but I'm making a change to it to make it dairy-free. So this is the flour that I like to use for all of my gluten-free baking. It's excellent. You can find it in most grocery stores. And the recipe calls for butter and shortening. So what my daughter-in-law taught me is you can just substitute coconut oil for any recipe that calls for butter or shortening, or if it calls for oil, you can melt it. So this is what it looks like. It looks like shortening, right? But it's coconut oil. So we can use that, and that makes it dairy-free. So I'm using a combination of the measurements for the for the shortening and the butter, equal amount of this, okay? And then for our dairy-free chocolate chips, this is the brand that I go with. This one doesn't have any of the common allergens. So if you need to cook and bake with allergies in mind, check your labels. And this is a chocolate brand that doesn't have any dairy in it. You'll also want to check your container of oats. We're going to use oats today. Some oats are labeled gluten-free and some are not. So if you need to be careful, definitely check that. I'm making a double batch today. So in here I have my brown sugar, my white sugar, vanilla, salt, apple cider vinegar. That's called for in this recipe. And to this we'll go ahead and add the coconut oil. So why do I make a double batch? Because I like to be efficient. My family gets together for dinners quite often. My son loves cookies. And so I make these and they go into the freezer after they've cooled and he can just grab them whenever he wants. I know, he's spoiled, right? I take care of my son. I love him. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn the dial here on the deluxe stand mixer to the cream setting. Push the button in. We're gonna let this whip nice and smooth until everything comes together. Don't rush it, let it get nice and fluffy. Got a couple of eggs, we're just gonna dump those in. Now if you want to, hit this dial. It pauses it, it doesn't stop it. And then you can take your scraper and scrape down the sides. I actually can see that it's doing a fine job. It doesn't really need to be scraped down, but you don't know sometimes until you open it up. So basically, here's what it looks like. It's smooth. I'm gonna go ahead and add the flour. So here we have the flour and the baking soda. Remember, there's apple cider vinegar in here, so that is going to interact. Do you remember doing those science experiments as a kid, making volcanoes with those two ingredients? It works in baking too. Now because I just added flour, I am going to hit the cancel button and I'm going to use custom and start it at a low speed so that we don't have a big mess. Let's pause it. We'll add in all of the oats. Now, I like to use rolled oats instead of quick oats. It gives it a little chewier texture, which I love. And I'll go ahead and add all of the chocolate chips now too. So this recipe is actually for oatmeal raisin. I use chocolate chips instead of raisins, and anytime I use chocolate chips in an oatmeal recipe, I skip the warm spices like the cinnamon and nutmeg. So I took this recipe, made it dairy-free, and did chocolate instead of raisins. That seems to appeal to our family a little bit more. Look at that. You can bake them right away. If you want to, you can freeze dough balls that are raw so that you can just bake them whenever you want, or you can make the cookies and freeze them after they're baked. It's completely up to you. For this recipe, I tend to bake them and then freeze them baked because then they're easy for Nick to grab out of the freezer when he wants them. My stone is hot. These are going to go into the oven at 350 degrees And I like to bake on the lower part of the oven, closer to the bottom, to have the best baking results. Here's what they look like after just 12 minutes in the oven. The next tip I have for you is let them sit on the hot stone for 2 minutes before putting them on the cooling rack. It helps your sugars solidify to produce the best bakery style cookie possible. And here's what a cookie looks like when it's baked on the stone. Do you see how perfect that is? These are amazing. So don't be afraid to play with recipes. When it calls for butter and shortening, use an equal amount of coconut oil, and oftentimes you can even switch out an all-purpose flour for a gluten-free flour. You can make gluten and dairy-free cookies successfully at home. Your family will love it.